Harry Dresden meets Indiana Jones in Lee Bardugo's Ninth House, but works for Greenpeace. That's like the elevator pitch log line comp list. So this is the first book in the Chronicles of Corbin Pierce. Who is Corbin Pierce? Corbin Pierce is a sarcastic community college anthropologist professor who has taken it upon himself to be the protector and steward of the magical world around him.
Fitz Of Writing.
Good evening, Scribbles and Scratches of the Fitz of Writing community. I am your host tonight, Sean Fitzgerald. Please like, comment, subscribe, all the wonderful things, notification bells, etc., etc. This week's guest comes to us at the behest of our benevolent patron, Sir Dr. Duncan. He manages an independent press. He dances with fire when he is not beholden to his Maine Coon cat and inserting animals into the stories he writes. Author Ben Schenkman. How are you doing tonight, Ben?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Absolutely. If you've watched a couple of episodes when we have authors on to talk about their work and everything, we generally try to start with a little bit of kind of a bio, a little bit about you, with a question of where your particular story begins. So how did you get going on your writing journey?
Yeah, so I started writing kind of young, though really long form wasn't in the cards for I'd say quite a long time. I wrote short stories in like elementary school and even middle school. I was very goth in high school, and so I wrote very angsty poetry. But I didn't I didn't write a novel, or at least draft a novel until I was in my 20s, and then I shelved it for like a decade. So really, it's only in the past 2.5 years that I've been writing seriously. So I guess you could say that I started my journey early, but there were a lot of stops and starts throughout it.
I gotcha. That's interesting. So when you said that for the last few years you've been writing, that's mostly or all long form and everything, and the stories that we want to kind of touch on today and how those all sprung up.
Yeah, I drafted my first novel. I finished the first draft of it back in National Novel Writing Month, or I guess it's now the writing contest that must not be named, in 2014. And then I tried to get it out there, a decade ago. Independent publishing, while possible, didn't have, I think, as much just like legitimacy as it does now. So I shelved it for a very long time after getting like no interest from agents or publishers. And then I actually have to blame, I blame TikTok, and I haven't told the story in a little while. There's one of my favorite creators, her name or her handle is Atomic Apple Pie, and she reads bad romance prose written by men and like does the whole like spray the screen kind of thing. Uh, and she's reading this terrible prose. Full offense to whoever wrote it because they deserved it. And I said to myself, I wrote a book and it can't possibly be as bad as this. And so I decided to dust it off and revise it, add some words, and decided to publish it. So yeah, literally the last 2.5 years it's all novels plus a short story.
I like that. They gave you the courage to put your own story out there because at least there would be one book that was worse. Well, I'm sure. How's that gone for you since you started publishing? I imagine that you've found some success, and especially with working through the independent publisher and everything right now. How's that gone for you ever since you started producing those stories?
I feel like it's gone well. I mean, so things to remember. Success means different things to every author. And to me, success is, are people that I don't know reading my stories and are they enjoying them? And in that, I feel like I found a fair amount of success. Um, would I love it if I sold more books? Sure. But I also write in what is currently not a popular genre unless your last name is Butcher.
Mm.
So, urban fantasy, while potentially having a renaissance, who knows? Because Butcher put out his latest book and maybe people will start paying attention to urban fantasy again. But yeah, I feel like I've been able to come a pretty long way in a short time. But then the whole small press thing, I decided to start Caffeinated Terrier Press, which that's actually a joke too. My main character in my first series, his name is Nick. I was trying to describe him for some marketing material. And there's like golden retriever energy, except Nick is an overcaffeinated barista. So I described him as having caffeinated terrier energy.
Hmm.
And then it was, when you're publishing your books, it says, what's the name of your publishing company? And you can just pick. No one can stop you. Uh, I mean, that's not true. If it's already trademarked, they can stop you. So you can't call yourself Tor Books, but Caffeinated Terrier Press, no one else was operating with it. And so it was born after that. And what I've done since then, one of the big pushes to get writing and publishing, I actually got invited to join a little authors Discord that's turned into a Connecticut, Massachusetts, like small writers co-op. And I've been using my small press, Caffeinated Terrier Press, to help friends of mine who want to publish their books. And it gives us kind of an umbrella to publish under, because there are still people who feel like self-published books that say published by Ben Schenkman aren't real books. They feel like the only books that matter are the ones that publishers put out. Well, surprise, we're a publisher, and so you get to publish with a name. My friend Lori Nielsen did our logo, which is a little terrier paw print in a coffee stain. And yeah, so we've actually put out a handful of, I think, very good titles among us.
That's awesome. You are not the first author that's come on the show recently that we've spoken with who has mentioned that whole, like, just adding that a little note of the publisher enhances the credibility of a book spine, basically, whenever it's landing on a shelf. And I found that interesting, but it makes sense. We're visual creatures and everything, so books get judged by their cover all the time. Might as well get judged by the publisher too. That's really awesome, though, that you get a chance to not only get your own books out there, but get other people's out there who are kind of trying to enter the writing world space and get their books in front of people that they don't know who will enjoy them. So I very much like to hear that. I'm glad that that's working out for you. It's kind of what we're striving for on this channel. I'm happy to have you on. Regarding the story that you submitted for us to kind of take a look at your writing and everything, Let Sleeping Gods Lie, I enjoyed it. I had a couple of questions that I wanted to breeze over with you, but first, would you mind giving everybody an elevator pitch and a glimpse at your cover?
Which, for the record, this is not the cover that I released it with initially in October. I did a redesign of the cover with a fully illustrated cover that I absolutely adore. So yeah, Let Sleeping Gods Lie. My elevator pitch is Harry Dresden meets Indiana Jones in Lee Bardugo's ninth house, but works for Greenpeace. That's like the elevator pitch log line comp list. So this is the first book in the Chronicles of Corbin Pierce. Who is Corbin Pierce? Corbin Pierce is a sarcastic community college anthropologist professor who has taken it upon himself to be the protector and steward of the magical world around him. The book itself has strong environmentalist and respect to indigenous cultures and creatures vibes. So that's kind of what I built it around. Hence, that's the Indiana Jones meeting the Harry Dresden bit.
Okay. And you said that before we kind of got rolling and everything that you are having not a sequel to this one, a sequel to a different one, right? Uh, is this a one shot or you're writing a trilogy? I can't remember.
So Corbin Pierce, the Chronicles of Corbin Pierce. So it's meant to be a series. It is actually intended to be this was my take on the traditional urban fantasy, like protector vibe kind of thing. So this is the equivalent of my Harry Dresden, or insert urban fantasy character that has a 15-book series here. There's no particular plan for how the series might end. A lot of my books. So I don't do the cliffhanger bit. I don't like cliffhangers. So you're not going to like have to read 3 books to find out what happens.
Okay.
But what each book does, it has its own story, and then it wraps up. Excuse me, and then it builds. The next book builds on that. So I can keep a series going for as long as I want, as long as there's something new and interesting to write about. So I have plenty of things in mind for Corbin Pierce. I actually am currently drafting the sequel, the book 2 of that series right now.
Okay.
So that is definitely intended to be a longer series. My first series, The Devil You Know, is capping out, at least the main storyline is actually capping out at 4 books. The 4th of which is drafted and now going through the process to hopefully get published later this year.
Okay. And the first Let Sleeping Gods Lie is the one that dropped in October, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Let Sleeping Gods Lie dropped in October. I have another new book, which is another new series that's just come out.
Right. A couple of days ago. Which one? What's that one called for everybody?
So that one is called My Brother's Keeper. And the series that starts, and for the record, like the reason why, and I realize this is a tangent, but the reason why I structure my books like I do is that even though it's a series, I want you to be able to read the book and say, you know what, I feel good. I actually don't want to see any more bad things happen to this character. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to be happy for the rest of my life. But if you want to see more bad things happen to good people, then you read the next book in the series and it builds on that. So the whole idea is like, yeah, I tease you about what could be next, but if you never read that, then like it's a mystery, but it's not like you're not waiting for George R.R. Martin to launch the last book in his series. So My Brother's Keeper is the first book in what I'm calling the Cycle of Ash. And it's a very Jewish urban fantasy. So Let Sleeping Gods Lie focuses on indigenous myths. I am not an indigenous person. Corbin Pierce is not an indigenous character. I won't write from that perspective. I have supporting characters who help aid that perspective. But again, like I think it's important that we don't co-opt marginalized voices. My Brother's Keeper, I'm Jewish. So I decided I wanted to write a Jewish urban fantasy and have a Jewish protagonist and like character set, dive into Jewish culture and magic, because what most people don't understand is the amount of like demonology and magic that actually exists in scripture.
Okay.
And so that was my take. So it's a I also do my best to have each series have a different feel. And so the name of the main character you made from the Cycle of Ash, his name is Max Asher.
Okay.
So Max is, okay, they're all sarcastic. You can't separate that. So sarcasm aside, My Brother's Keeper is grittier. It's darker. It's got kind of a noir feel, and Max is legit a private investigator. So like it's a different side of the urban fantasy trope.
Okay. Yeah. My co-host is working on sort of a fantasy noir thing too, and I've had a lot of fun with the parts of it that I've read. It's very interesting. You don't hear a lot about that, so I would imagine that's something that could become pretty popular if there's enough books out there for it for people to catch on. Is there like any parts of that you really want to dive into, give away, or do you just want everybody to go and buy your book?
Well, I can at least give you the thrust of it.
Sure.
Is Max Asher is an identical twin, and he comes home to bury his brother, who has died under what turns out to be mysterious circumstances, to which Max then has to get involved, not only with his sister-in-law and nephew, who are now his, because they were estranged, so they're his newfound family. He then also is tasked with the job of investigating Solomon's death. So yeah, it's I love the story. Pieces of feedback that I got from early readers that you can see in reviews is "How dare you?" That's a good piece of feedback that I got. It's got a twist in it that most readers don't see coming up until the very end or at all.
Ah, okay. Getting a little M. Night Shyamalan. I don't know how to say his name.
Only in that his first one, because everything after that first one was bad. So I'll
A man after my own heart. Thank you for saying that.
Mhm.
I will
we will
stand with you.
speak we will speak the brave truths.
Yes. Okay. Well, I mean, it definitely sounds interesting. And this is the one that you just put out.
Yeah.
Great. Everybody,
Yeah, it came out March 30th.
Great. Well, we'll get into where everybody can buy that later, but whatever
Sure.
Ben says, those links are going to be down in the video description below. I'm going to actually take a quick moment for Sir Dr. Duncan to break in and tell you all about our monthly Telltale contest right now.
Kindly lend me your ears, my dear Scribbles and Scratches, and if you've any sense about you, your imaginations as well. The Fitz of Writing has officially turned our lovely Telltale writing prompts into a challenge. My idea, of course. What better way to stoke the fires of creativity than with a bit of friendly blood sport betwixt cohorts? To join the fray, submit your tale in the comments of the monthly Telltale prompt, or if you're too timid to toss your words into the abysmal ether of the internet, simply email us with the heading Telltale or TAT for short, and don't forget to add the month. Fear not, you will not miss our monthly post, for we shall repost it every week. At the end of the month, your gracious hosts shall pick their favorite and provide the winner with a simple yet wondrous audiovisual package of the chosen tale. So, what are you waiting for? Spill some ink, strike the like, and semper scribe.
Thanks, boss. We're back, and this is kind of where we gear the conversation a little bit more towards the craft of writing, even though it is going to tie into Let Sleeping Gods Lie and anything else you really want to make mention of. But you introduced yourself to us when you applied to be on the show as an urban fantasy writer, and we haven't seen a whole lot of those. And we were wondering, like, why specifically urban fantasy as opposed to high or low fantasy, historical fantasy, things like that, and magical realism too, that you also made a point to note out, which I believe is what you said Let Sleeping Gods Lie was. So what reasoning did you have for picking that?
Yeah, so almost all of my books, I have one book out that's like a dungeon core, like kind of low fantasy-ish romp that I did as part of a writing contest, but everything else is urban fantasy and magical realism. Magical realism is like a sub genre. Why? So the joke. Why? Because I'm lazy and then I don't have to build a world. That's the joke answer. The real answer is because it's actually one of my favorite genres to read. And so I knew that if I was going to write a book, I wanted it to be an urban fantasy. There's nothing more enjoyable to me than what if magic was real? And like, what if magic was real in a fantasy world that doesn't exist, doesn't hit the same as what if magic was real in my college town where I grew up, you know? Or what, it's the same thing. What if magic was real in New York City or Chicago or whatever big city people want to put their urban fantasies in?
Hiding
And
behind the veil, or however
yeah,
you want to say it.
well, it goes two ways. Your choices as an urban fantasy author are hidden world or exposed world.
Okay.
And I tend, and honestly, the majority of urban fantasy that I'm aware of tends toward hidden world, in that not everyone knows about it. But there are some urban fantasy where it's just like it's an urban setting, but it's kind of a magic futuristic, in that the magic has been around and everyone is aware of it, and therefore the world is a different place. So it depends on what your flavor is as an author, but I like the hidden world piece because I also feel like you have more to play with when it comes to that. But then magical realism on top of that, because I like my magic systems to be grounded in some kind of reality, which is why I tend to mix them with world religion, because I want the magic to relate to something more tangible. I even make a joke in Let Sleeping Gods Lie that it's not about throwing fireballs around, because that's blatant magic in a hidden magic world. Okay, fine. But there can be big things that happen that are not just slinging magic around like it's a gun,
Right. Harry Potter type of.
Well, and Harry Dresden. Yeah, it's a lot of those like very specific kind of, it's the wizard for hire tropes. A lot of those are like spell slingers, and I like my magic to be a little more subtle.
I think I can jive with you on that. I think we're in the same camp there for sure. That almost feels a little bit sort of like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, just to make it high fantasy relative. That's
Mhm.
a little bit more my ballpark, but he's very limited in how he uses it. It's used as almost like the same thing as what a flashlight would be if it was a modern time, with little rock in the staff and everything. And I appreciate that limit put on it because it can't solve all the problems. You
Mhm.
still need your characters, and I think that's probably what kind of really hooks readers in on that particular element. So I'm with you there. I like that. When it comes to, I also wanted to mention earlier, when you have the hidden world trope and everything as well, it kind of adds extra stakes to your story too, because you don't need everybody knowing that there is this magical circulation going on around them. When you said that the urban fantasy is what you like to read a whole lot, another thing that I noticed whenever I was reading your submission was that it wasn't first person point of view, and I like to bring that up fairly often with the folks that I'm talking to, because you see a lot of opinions out there on the web about whether to go uh, first person past tense, present tense, third person, all of that. What do you write in first person in all of your stories, or is that something that is specific to the Let Sleeping Gods Lie?
All of my urban fantasy, and to be frank, most urban fantasy genre appropriate choice would be first person.
Okay.
Some people don't. Some people are less clear on the fact that POV is at least partially a genre choice. For example, I would say the majority of epic fantasy that I have ever read is third person. And, older, more traditional epic fantasy was a more third person, semi omniscient, but a lot of modern epic fantasy is third person close, where it's like someone sitting on their shoulder. But
Right.
nonetheless, for epic fantasy or even a lot of like lit RPG, you would expect a third person perspective. Though lit RPG or progression fantasy gets a little funky in that there are plenty of first person expressions of that. I expect that's also partially because to get immersed in a character that you want to be invested in, first person point of view is often an easy way to do that, right? Because you're like inside their head.
Mhm. Sure.
But yeah, so I think first person is first person past tense, because the only thing that will make me throw a book out the window is actually the idea of first person present tense, and that hurts my brain to think about reading. Uh, if people do it if you're an author out there and you write first person present tense, I'm sorry, but also I don't judge you. I just can't read your book because I'm neurospicy and it hits my brain the wrong way to be like, I touch the thing. No, you touched it in the past. I'm not here for the ride along.
Right. No, I need to know that this already happened and you got out okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I struggle with present tense. First or third person, it's something that I really only ever experienced recently, and not saying that it's wrong. It just might not be my cup of tea.
I literally block it out. Like, I said to my partner, "Oh, I don't like present tense," and they were like, "Did you read The Hunger Games?" I'm like, "Yeah, that was in past tense," and they're like, "No, it's not," and I'm like, "You are lying to me," and they're like, "Nuh-uh," and I looked it up, and it's like this book is in present tense, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" I just completely I rewrote it in my head that never happened.
Oh wow! Nah, I'd have just doubled down on my denial game and blamed it on the Hadron Collider. It switched me to an alternate universe where it was written in present
It's a
tense.
Berenstain Bears situation.
Yes, precisely. The if only. The next question that I had was actually based on one of the sort of facts about yourself that you gave us. That was that you incorporate a lot of animals into your storytelling, and when you mentioned earlier the world religions and the indigenous cultures and their religions that you try to kind of pay homage to and incorporate into your storytelling, do those two things have something to do with each other? And how do you go about utilizing animals in a way? I noticed the raccoon on your cover, so
Yeah. Okay. First, one thing I just want to note about Let Sleeping Gods Lie and the Chronicles of Corbin Pierce in general. Uh, I, while not being an Indigenous person, I did work with Indigenous folks in the writing of this book, and also just in honor of that support. 10% of the profits, 10% of royalties that I get from these books in any form forever, will go to a 501c3 charity called Not Our Native Daughters. And Not Our Native Daughters, their mission is to try and solve the missing, murdered, and exploited Indigenous women's crisis. So just as a quick aside to anyone who's interested as a reader, 10% of what I get from the books is going to a charity to support Indigenous women.
now you have to buy the book.
Now you must. Morally, you are required. But as far as the animals go, I love cats. I'm a cat person, and my first book had and I wrote this before I had a big fluffy Maine Coon. I have a big fluffy Maine Coon now, but when I drafted this book, I didn't. And there is a fluffy one-eyed Maine Coon in the first series called Odin, and I love cats. I feel like it's more fun in books when people have pets, and I'm not a dog person, so I don't want to write dogs into my books. Sorry, dog people. You can write dogs into your books. That's fine. And so, my first series has 1, 2, and then with the fourth one coming out later this year, there's a third cat that gets introduced in the whole series that represent my actual cats. Like, I have a cat and my partner has 2 cats. That being said, the the animal support in Let Sleeping Gods Lie and subsequent books is a raccoon, because raccoons are indigenous creatures in New England, and they feature there are indigenous tales about raccoon, how raccoon got he got his mask and the rings around his tail. And I wanted there to be representation of indigenous wildlife, because part of Corbin's thing is he's protecting indigenous spiritual creatures. Like, when I say spirit animal, I mean literally animals that are made of spirit, not the woo woo white people co-opting indigenous lore by saying that they have a spirit animal. So legit, the raccoon is like a half spirit creature, in that he exists in both like the material world and on. So the way that the magic works is, think of the spirit lands like an overlay of our world, with the veil that covers between the two. And so the raccoon kind of straddles both, and he can straddle both because he's fat. He's my favorite. Everyone loves him. I would like to say that Corbin Pierce is the star of the book. It is in fact the raccoon. But the reason why I have it is in fact partly to incorporate more pieces of indigenous lore and whatnot.
Okay. In the book that you're writing that is going to be coming out later this year, is that going to also have some sort of animal that is a tie-in with your magic systems or anything like that? Or is it a little less prominent in the Devil You Know series?
Oh no, the cat that gets introduced. So, okay, my cat, the fluffy one in the book, is named Odin. In the second and third books, there's another cat named Pants, who is legitimately my partner's long-haired tuxedo cat named Pants, and she figures prominently in books 2 and 3. And then in the fourth book, my partner's orange cat, whose name is Jack, makes an appearance in a pivotal kind of way in the fourth book. So yeah, I don't always make cats prominent figures, but in these books I have. Ironically, Odin has the smallest part, but he's mostly involved in Nick's initial existential crisis in the first book.
Okay. Something to hold on to. Tell him it's going to be all okay.
Well, he literally has one of those moments where he feels like he's disconnected from humanity. So instead of a potted plant, he gets a cat.
Okay.
You know?
As one does.
Like you do.
I've got one cat. You've been insulting me to my face this entire time. I am not a cat person. I have one. It wasn't my idea to get it. But she's all right, I guess. So it seems like you want to like pull in a lot of different elements and make sure that you're sort of voicing and representing, defending even a lot of different religions, aspects, point of views, cultures, what have you, in your stories, while tying all that in. Even though some of it's in different stories, what's been the most like difficult part of all of that for you, and how did you get past it, or overcome whatever challenges you were having?
I think part of like one of the big things that any author has to do is, number one, it's easy, it's pat to say you have to get it right, because no, you don't actually have to get it right. You have to just first start by deciding how right do you want to get it. Is what you're writing about an inspiration, where you're then like going off on a 90-degree tangent and then the source material doesn't matter as much? Or are you trying to incorporate the lore into your world in a way that resonates with people who have a deep understanding of it. It's one thing to say, yeah, I have a raccoon in the book, and he's a cheeky little thief and he's a side character and isn't that cute, and like just ignore like the parts of it that are more related to the indigenous lore, or are you more faithful to it? Um, so I think one of the biggest challenges across all of my books is one, trying to be consistent in how right I want to make it, and then getting it right. I will say The Devil You Know is the least right, in that it's I know plenty and have researched plenty more about Christianity. It, the first series starts out primarily Abrahamic, and that's more from a Christian perspective. And I took plenty of liberties with the source material, but also stayed relatively true to the core of it. So you're going to find, every I say everyone, people who have wrote comments about this have mentioned that they feel like my material is always very well researched, and I appreciate that, because that means either I'm getting that part right or I'm faking it well enough that no one knows, and either is fine.
Okay.
But it becomes more important when you are incorporating perspectives and lore and religion that is from a more marginalized perspective, because you don't want to punch down, right? Christianity can take it. It's a big kid. You're punching up if you're taking one of the biggest world religions and you're maybe going a little satirical. That's fine, but like, take Algonquin myths and like screw it up, and you're accidentally lampooning a culture that you're trying to respect, and it's too easy to get that wrong, you know. And I got into that a bit in the first series when I start incorporating some Indian, like from India, in Indian characters and religion, and I had more of a responsibility. Not that Hinduism isn't like one of the largest world religions, because it is, but nonetheless, of a more marginalized people, I had more of a responsibility to get that part right than I did in any of the Christian stuff that I maybe felt a little freer to take liberties with.
Okay. So I say, or so just to kind of paraphrase, I guess you would say that your advice would, like, to newer authors who kind of want to tackle some of the same things that you're tackling in your stories, maybe rather than having that crisis of, am I doing good enough when you get there, maybe set those goalposts before you even get started, so that you know when good is good enough, is kind of what
Yeah.
I'm feeling from what you're saying, like knowing when you will be happy with what it is rather than trying to feel it as you go.
In addition, I feel like you have a responsibility to involve more people in your creative process than just yourself.
Okay.
There are plenty of readers of all types who are potentially going to be able to help ensure that what you've done hits right.
Okay.
So yeah, set guideposts for yourself in that, understand how far you're willing to go for authenticity and respectful handling of the material, and then do your best to incorporate people who can tell you if you've actually screwed this up or not. Let's Sleep in God's Lie, I had the support of clan mother Shoren Piper from the Golden Hill Poggusets in Trumbull, Connecticut, which is the Golden Hill Poggusets are an Algonquin tribe. So the Algonquin like nation and tribes is like a large swath, like New England and into Canada. There's a lot of different Algonquin tribes. Let's Sleep in God's Lie focuses on a Quinnipiac myth, but if you try to find the Quinnipiac as a modern tribe, they basically don't exist because they were never recognized by the state or federal government, and the like leaders of the tribe are, let's just say, effectively unavailable, if there are any at this point. And so it would be easy for me to say, well, no one can help make sure I'm interpreting these Quinnipiac myths correctly, so I guess I'm on my own. But instead, you go next door and find a clan mother of a neighboring tribe who was interested in consulting with me on the book. So it's the, however far it is that you think you're going, make sure it's actually far enough, and not just enough to satisfy you, but actually kind of lazy about it. Because if I had not gotten feedback from indigenous people, and not just Clan Mother Shorin, because Clan Mother Shorin helped, but one of my arc readers, who I pulled my arc readers and said, hey, I'm going to be putting out an indigenous, like, lore inspired book. Does anyone have any contacts in any of the tribes?
Mhm.
And Susie got back to me and said, hi, I'm of the Anishinaabe people and would be interested in early reading your book to give you feedback on it. And she actually, even more so than Clan Mother Shoran, gave me like actionable feedback about things in my book that, had they gone to press, 99% of people would have thought it was fine. And an indigenous person might have not been as pleased with a few of those scenes without the changes that I made based on that feedback.
All right. So also be very diligent in your research, just to make sure that the steps you're taking towards those goalposts you set are educated ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fine line between, like, it's a spectrum. You don't want to lampoon or make fun, and you don't want to tokenize or, like, have that magical, like, savior person of that disposition.
Sure. I I think that that's good advice for any new writers that hopefully stumble across this video, and that they should get Ben's books and see how he does it with his writing. Go get him.
And reach out. I'm happy to talk with anyone about this. Like, one of the best things about the indie author community is the indie author community.
Mhm.
Everyone is so supportive. If you need something, if you need feedback, if one indie author can't help you, they may know another that can. Like, the network is vast.
Just based off of how you said you like to tie into, the real world with your writing and everything, and in the stories you like to read. So how do you prefer to weave magical elements into the stories that you write, everyday life, to where it comes naturally? How do you like to do that? Do you have a trick?
I think you have to be a little bit sneaky, or at least, so think about it this way. As you're walking through life, one of the most delightful or surprising things would be if, in the course of your normal activities, something magical happened, right? So my magic systems vary from series to series, but just as an example, the way that Let Sleeping Gods Lie works, it's a very magic as a natural resource. So it's part of the environmental message of the whole book, in that doing magic pulls on resources, whether they're your own or someone else's. And that's what separates people like Corbin Pierce from the enemies in the book, where Corbin will tax his own resources rather than stealing that essence from the nature around him.
Okay.
So, it's like, in the opening chapter of Let Sleeping Gods Lie, there's the shriveling of a daisy in a gutter that's just like the representing the pulling of magic from the world into whatever this character is doing, like little bits and pieces, incorporating. And this is why I like so much blending magic with the actual lore. Corbin offers tobacco to the raccoon in the first chapter because tobacco is a traditional offering in indigenous culture, and the raccoon is a creature of the land but also a spirit of the land. So like it literally is one of those moments where reality and magic like intertwine. So it's, you've got this moment where it's this very, very real expression of a piece of culture with a little piece of magic just like poked into it. And same thing like with that example with that daisy in the, like, it's such a mundane thing. It's a gutter that's got dirt in it and there's a weed growing out of it. And the thing that tells you that magic, and in this case, nefarious magic is happening, is that the daisy just shrivels up and dies. So like, I feel like the best way to weave it into everyday life is to have it just appear in everyday life. Like you have to pick those moments where it is the right time for that like sprinkle of magic.
Sort of like in the scenery and something a lot of people would overlook, but you as the writer force the reader to see it, at least for a glimpse.
Yeah, the Corbin just describes it like when thinking about the magical world, like imagine someone walking down the street and that moment where you're like, oh, did something just run across my foot? And you look down and nothing is there. But that's because you, the average person that does not have the skill to look across the veil into the spirit lands, can't see the squirrel that just jumped across your foot. So it's like those moments, it's these little beats, it's I think what separates a lot of like those magical moments from just like, again, chucking magic around.
It seems like, just from hearing you talk about it, only having read a little bit of your writing and everything, but it feels like you are very restrained in you like it when all of the elements of your story stay in the pocket and only shine when it's their time to do so, and never too brightly. And I can respect that. There's an analogy somewhere about some of the best bands that are out there. Nobody's soloing or whatever 100% of the time, because the best ones know there's a time and a place, and the rest of it, you just get to see little glimpses of it. And I can appreciate that just from my musician side, not knowing much of your writing. But it seems like you are very, very conscious of how you put your stories together, and I appreciate that. I think that you're doing a great job. For everybody else who thinks that you're doing a great job, where are your favorite places for people who want to pick up your books to find them and follow you as you keep going with writing?
Okay, so to follow me, you should definitely go to my website, which is benschenkman.com, and you should definitely sign up for my newsletter. Or if you like early reading opportunities and free books, you should sign up for my advanced review copy team, my ARC team, because you can do either. You can sign up for my newsletter and you get a free short story, which is actually a prequel short story to The Devil You Know. It's called The Thief of Joy. And if you do sign up, I send out one newsletter a month because I don't like getting newsletters. And so I don't want to send you too many. Now, you can buy my books. Ebooks are tied to Amazon because my ebooks are all in Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, go check them out. If you don't have Kindle Unlimited, you can still buy the ebooks on Amazon. Paperbacks and hardcovers, you can get wherever it is that you prefer to get them. They are available on Amazon, but also like Barnes & Noble, Rakuten, all that stuff.
Fantastic.
I will say I'm also an audiobook narrator. And so books 1 and 2 of my first series are available widely as audiobooks. And I'm currently working, I say this, I'm still working my way through the editing on the third book.
Okay. That's fantastic. Well, you know what? I'm going to start assuming that everybody who's coming at me that has a their own microphone and a camera does some narration work, because we're running into it a lot. But do you narrate just your books, or do you also do work with other folks as well?
I do a little bit of other work. I narrated a short story for Redacted Tales, which is Clarence Carter's podcast. I narrated a short story called Pest Control that was written by Clint Baker. So that's available actually for free on YouTube.
Okay.
But I also do some work with Total Immersion Narration, which is a full cast like audio drama production house.
All right.
And I have a bit of work under a pseudonym that I can't mention because it's for certain other kinds of books. But I will say I do have some parts in a different of Clint Baker's longer form content, The Worshipped Around Reality's Bend, which is being released as episodes on Spotify. Season 2 of the series, by which I believe season 2 means book 2. So the second book in the series is out as a new season on Spotify.
Awesome. Do you make announcements about those releases on your website and the other places folks can follow you?
I tend to. I should do it more.
You do you.
It's like the cobbler's children have no shoes. My website is unfortunately where my I don't update my blog posts as much as I should. So if you want to know what's going on with me, sign up for my newsletter, because that gets updated monthly, and that I give status on, like, here's where I am on all of my active projects. But then also follow me on social media, and you can find all my social links on my website.
Perfect. All right. Well, good. That would be, I think that everybody go follow Ben so that you can keep up with any of the many things he's got going on. It sounds like he has his irons in a lot of fires. I'm going to let you get back to work. I don't have any more questions for you. Is there anything you'd like to say to everybody before we wrap it up?
No, just I love talking with other authors and other people in the community. So I hope that anything that I have said can be helpful to any new authors out there. And readers, I am here for you. And people who write in present tense, I'm sorry.
I'm not. Awesome. Well, thanks. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm thankful for you working with me with the scheduling and everything, Ben. I will say to the Scribbles and Scratches, check him out, follow him, check out or buy his books if any of those sound interesting to you. If you like what you see on these episodes, or the AOTs, or the Saturday Wows, I don't care. Any of them, like them, subscribe, share, blah, 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 all the stuff I beg for regularly. Strike the like, semper scribe, and fade to black.